watch it on the exhibition. Hello, welcome everybody. I am Kristine Shoemaker. I run Shoebox Projects, which is an alternative art space here at the brewery near downtown LA. I also run Shoebox Arts, which is a support network for artists, and I'm a publisher of Art and Cake, which is an online art magazine, and I'm also an artist too. So we're here today because we are celebrating Patricia and her online art exhibition, Lemonade, and it's a story of her chronic illness, and which is one of the programs that we do for Shoebox Projects. I have the physical space, which I had taken a hiatus over the pandemic, and we actually just brought it back, and we have our first physical show in there right now, which happens to be Monica Marks, which is here online too. And there is going to be an artist talk on February 3rd for Monica, 1 to 3 p.m., or it's a closing reception artist talk. So if you have any questions about that, just let me know, and I'll post information for chat as we're talking, or in chat as we're talking. And also, Patricia and Monica are on a panel with a Laura Brody who's here on chronic illness, and that's on January 28th. And so we'll post the information about that too. So it's a really special month. It's an important month. It's, an inspiring month and empowering. And so, all of this needs to be out there. And, I have to tell you, Patricia got this show because she had submitted for a different show, a group show with Shoebox Projects. And she got a solo show from that. So I chose an artist from that group show to get a solo show. And she got the solo show, and we talked about it. And it was a few months ago, I think. I don't even remember the exact time. And we talked about it, and we decided to do her show in January. And then, with Monica, totally separate things, didn't even think about it. I, had talked to Monica and I said, hey, I'm going to bring back my physical space. I want to give you a show. I'm going to curate it. I want you to do this work, and like a month ago, I realized, I'm like, oh my God, they are like both about the same thing. It's like, and then I found out they're both on a panel with Laura Brody. So it was just like serendipitous all around and, exciting. So I'm honored to be part of the three of them and what they're doing too. And because, they're all amazing. So with that, I thought we would start off just with Patricia. Before, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and show the online exhibition, and I'll put a link in chat also. So if you want to pull it up, it's on shoeboxprojects.com website underneath exhibitions. But what I'm going to do is I'll share my screen and show the exhibition. But before that, I wanted, to ask Patricia, and actually even before that, I wanted to let anybody know, if you have any questions and, feel free, let's have a conversation. Patricia's going to talk about who she is, why she's an artist, why she's an activist, what she does and why it's important. But let's have a conversation about it. So, we both talked and, we can make this informal. We want this to be lively and, we want it to be important. So, so just keep that in mind. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to post in chat and I can read them out loud. But yeah, in the meantime, Patricia, if you want to start off and, kind of tell us about your art life, tell us, kind of your history of being an artist, why, how, what, all of the important information.
Yeah, so I think I've always been creative since very young. I didn't I wasn't necessarily into photography when I was really young. We weren't super well off, so I didn't have any gear or anything like that. But I liked being creative where there are parameters. So for example, like with architecture, you can be wildly creative as an architect, but the structure still needs to stand, right? And so I was drawn to photography because there's this technical aspect. I'm sort of this left brain, right brain kind of creative person. And it really started for me when I was quite young. I taught myself to sew in the fourth grade because we didn't have a lot. And for us, if we were lucky, once or twice a year, we'd get this big trip to Kmart to get something new. And so in high school, I really kind of felt like I stood out a little bit, and not for reasons that I was super comfortable with. So I really got into fashion design and ended up making prom dresses for friends. And then I ended up making wedding dresses for friends. And then the wedding dress thing kind of took off. And that was part of how I worked my way through university. And at university, I studied political science and international relations. I was always so very interested in the world, and especially what was going on, how women were being treated, and sort of the discriminations and the injustices. And so it was this mix of, here I am making wedding dresses, but I really want to save the world and take in all the girls that are, that are orphans. Um, and so coming out of university, I had these two things. There was sort of, okay, am I going to go international with this degree? Well, the wedding dress thing's going really well. So maybe I will pursue that as a business, maybe open my own boutique. And so I knew the business side, I knew the fashion design side, but I didn't know the retail side. So I went to work for Gap so that I could learn retail. Well, long story short, I kind of got pulled more into the operations side because I was one of the few people that could talk both to and with the creatives and the operations folks. I was sort of this translator kind of person in between. And so I actually ended up with this corporate career for like 20 years. So just a complete, about shift out of nowhere. How did this happen? Sort of thing. But every time I had time off, I would go volunteer overseas. I was always so interested in the world and I wanted to do good. And so eventually, and I always had my camera with me. So that's how the photography thing kind of started to come to be. Was there would be times where these programs would say, oh, we need to document this, or we need to show what we're doing here. And this was back before phones had become cameras. This was actually probably early digital even. So I had a real opportunity there to use my skills, and I had always been, honing my skills. And then they started asking me things like, hey, we're going to Dominican Republic next. Can you come with us? Or, hey, we're going to be doing this project in, blah, blah, blah next month. Can you meet us there? Well, no, I have this job. But I started to kind of think about, wow, that's kind of what I really would like to be doing. And just about the time I started to think about making a transition, I got sick. I got really sick. I was walking to BART, to public transportation in the financial district. I was in San Francisco one night after working a very long day. And it was as though somebody had come up behind me and just pushed me. I kind of did this weird stumble thing, but there was nobody around. And I thought, oh, well, that's really strange. Maybe did I eat today? Kept walking halfway down the block. Then it was as though somebody put their hands on my shoulders and just shoved me to the ground. And I went down hard. I didn't hit my head, but when I lifted my head up, the world was doing this weird shaking thing. It wasn't spinning, it wasn't a vertigo, it was just this weird, almost like with my heartbeat. And I became so weak, I could not get up. Fortunately, a taxi came by, took me to the emergency room, and I was down and out. My heart rate was in the 40s. It kept slipping into the 30s. They found a tumor in my brain, and my muscles weren't working. I was so weak, I couldn't even sit up in a chair. I would just slither to the floor. For a year and a half, I was in and out of the hospital, mostly in. My eyes weren't getting enough blood. I had such low blood volume. My eyes weren't getting enough blood. They went cross-eyed so far down, they declared me blind. I couldn't see anything. I could tell if a person was standing in front of me, but I didn't know who. They finally did surgery to correct that. I still can't see up there, but so it was a super traumatic year and a half. They finally diagnosed me with myasthenia gravis, with an autoimmune component, which was Sjogren's syndrome for me. And then I learned that neuromuscular diseases and autoimmune diseases come in packs, sort of a buy one, get five free sort of thing. So not only was I dealing with these diseases, but there was POTS and dysautonomia, and myalgic encephalomyelitis is the worst one for me. And so, I'm trying to deal with all of this, and I'm starting to get some support, and I'm starting to get some strength back. And as soon as I could, I started going overseas because my mental health had taken such a hit with all of this as well. There were so many scary moments where they would come into the ICU and tell me, there's just nothing more we can do. Is there somebody we can call for you? Or would you like to see a priest for last rites? And so it was just horribly traumatic, this whole experience. And I just felt like I needed to try to get some of me back. And I knew that getting out in the world would be fueling for me. I knew picking up my camera would help to sort of restore at least me mentally. And fortunately, there were programs that were still willing and still had needs. And so I joined up with some of them, and they paid me this time. And it ended up being as much work as I wanted. And most of the programs were so in line with who I've always been as a human and as an artist, in that they were focused on, all these studies had come out that said that if you focus on women and girls, entire communities would be raised. I thought I hit the jackpot, not in the horrible things that I was seeing or the things that they were working on, but the work that I got to do. I got to be the support person, which is what I love. I love being a worker bee behind the scenes, supporting these incredible programs. I couldn't work full time, obviously, because of my disabilities, but whenever I could, I would partner up with these groups. And that's really how I got started in photography. It was mostly overseas, mostly in developing countries. I did some work here in the United States, also focused on women and girls. I did a program where we showed the effects of sexual assault on women and how that's often a lifelong life sentence. I spent 6-8 months traveling around the Western United States, photographing young women in their 20s that were breaking stereotypes of some kind, so that the teens and tweens coming behind them didn't have to. One of my favorite projects actually was in southern Malawi, working with this young woman named Ida Paliwa and this foundation that she started called Ota Karaka. She's doing amazing work. You really should go check out her stuff on my website. She's going to win a Nobel Prize at some point. I just want to say I called it here. But so I've really been fortunate to work on some really incredible projects. And I started to think about my own health, and what I learned through my experience with chronic illness is that the medical community really doesn't have a whole lot figured out where the human body is concerned. And for whatever reason, they're very hesitant to admit that. And especially if you're a woman. there's a lot of, instead of saying, gosh, we just don't know, or I don't know, let's see what we can figure. No, there are these phrases that I swear they've weaponized against women. Oh, that's not a thing. Oh, that's not really a thing. Or that's so rare. I'm sure you don't have it. I mean, it's been the most horrific journey learning about our medical system here in the United States. And consequently, I've had to learn about my own conditions, my own diseases, and the things that I'm dealing with by doing my own research. Fortunately, I've become really good friends with some of the doctors that I worked with overseas, so they've helped in my research. There are these amazing groups on Facebook around different conditions and diseases, and we're just this incredible hive of information. We all share and support each other. And so I started learning about things, and I would end up going to doctors and trying to get them to join me as a consultant, they with their medical experience and me with my me experience, and they just weren't interested. And so the more that and this has been going on for like 15 years now, and the more experiences I've had, the more the more frustrated I've become, the more outraged, I think, is probably the better word, in the way that women are being dismissed. The misogyny is just incredible. The discrimination is unacceptable. Women are dying from these diseases. Women are taking their own lives because of these diseases. And as hesitant as I am, and I put this off for the longest time, I do not like to be in front of the camera. I did not want to do this project, definitely not in this way, but I didn't feel like I could be me, or that my prior work stood for anything, if I wasn't willing to do whatever it took to expose what it's really like having a chronic illness. There's a lot of dismissal and discrimination out there, not just from the medical community. A lot of people, they're very helpful initially, upon diagnosis, but if it's ongoing, people just don't have the patience for that. So people start to kind of fall by the wayside. You lose friends, even family members at times. And so there's this other component about how important it was to try to pretend not to be sick. So I actually started this Facebook page called Faking Wellness with Patricia, because a lot of us spend a lot of time and effort faking being well, so that honestly we're not treated so poorly by society. Yeah, I felt like, I guess I just really felt like this needed to be out there. And as much as I would rather be photographing somebody else's story, it made the most sense to present my story, and show that this can happen to anybody. I was so athletic when this hit. I had recently ridden I had ridden a century, 100 miles on my bicycle. I was running 6 miles a day as my warm up. I had, just 2 days before this all hit, I had gone on this really grueling hike with my sister up in Marin. I don't know what the elevation gain was. I'm still mad at her for that experience. She really kicked my butt. But I was super athletic. I was in shape when this all hit out of the blue. So, it can happen to anybody. And yeah, I guess I want people to understand what it's like. I want them to go hug their loved ones who are experiencing, any kind of chronic illness or disability, because it really is, it's ghastly, and it's deadly. It's frightening. It's it's definitely the most challenging thing I've ever had to deal with. So yeah, that's how we got here. Here we
Well,
are.
thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing your story and where you came from and up to this point. And thank you for in all of your work, your bravery and and your vulnerability. And I know I get said that all the time too, and I'm like, well, it's just me being me, but I mean, I get it. I definitely get it. Let's go ahead. I'll share my screen now, and then we could start talking about the project. Oops, let me see. There we go. So let's start actually even with the title. Where did you come up with the title Lemonade?
So to be perfectly honest, that was a placeholder. That was one day I I had just had a day, and I just kept thinking, I am so tired of making lemonade. I need fewer lemons, and I was just having this sort of crisis of a day. And so but I needed a title for the files on my computer. And so I just plopped lemonade in there. And originally I kind of thought, oh, I'm gonna use a title that's more like discarded or file 13 or circular file or one of those things where you're basically just tossed aside once you become sick. But I don't know, lemonade just sort of stuck. And I mean, there are other artists out there that have done things around lemonade that have been so inspirational to me that I just sort of, I don't know, I guess I feel a little inspired by the word. So it's sort of stuck until someone, I don't know, who says, oh, that's awful, or you should change that. I don't know.
I think it's perfect. I think it is so reminiscent of faking wellness. I think, yeah, I think it's the perfect title for this. And so thank you. Um, yeah, if you want to, because we met a couple of times to talk about the exhibition. You told me what it was, about, you sent me some images, but you've been working on it ever since. And you put the order together, you created the files, the JPEGs with text. So do you kind of want to, I can scroll through a little bit and we can do you want to talk about the order, talk about anything specifically? When did you start the project, actually? It's a good question, a good, you know, place to start.
Yeah, so officially, I guess you could say I started it last spring, I think it was, when I finally caved and said, okay, I've got enough energy to take a few photographs and let's see how this goes, sort of thing. Um, to your question of sort of the format and the flow, I think one thing that's really important to me, and the reason that I use the typewriter font, the old-timey sort of typewriter font, and the reason I created the panels, some equal image, equal words, was I kind of feel like this story is a story with pictures as opposed to some pictures with some words, which is kind of a more typical photography is, either it's the images speak for themselves or there are, a few captions here and there. But I feel like for this particular series that the words matter as much as the images. I do feel like the images somewhat stand on their own, and I think they kind of evoke their own sort of response. But I I think there's a lot of detail in the data, if you will, that is important to convey. I really want to help people understand the detail and the depth of the suffering, the depth of the discrimination, the I just feel like there's just a lot to get out there. So that was a lot of behind the reason of sort of the format and the flow. I think, it's really, I don't know that there was a lot to the flow as until I just sort of started, slotting things in and just wanted to create a little bit of a journey, but I don't know that it was necessarily critical what order things came in. Mostly I wanted to try to do something a little bit different, a little bit fresh. I have a wacky sense of humor. So like this image here where I'm floating above my body, I mean, it's not funny that I do sometimes forget, so kind of forget who I was, and who I am as a person. And sometimes I think, am I me? Am I still in there? And, so I thought, okay, how am I going to portray this? And so I don't know. I thought this was just kind of a fun way to do this. I guess I wanted to somehow try to figure out a way to show the reality of chronic illness, but not in a way that's so gruesome and just, would just put off people. And so I'm trying to find a balance there. And then, of course, there was gee, will the MRI people allow me to take a picture in there? There's all these HIPAA things or whatever. So yeah, I knew that there were these different scenarios that a lot of us women with chronic illness all face. And so I started making a list, and then I started plotting out, okay, put my creative hat on. How can I show this in pictures? And then some days, quite honestly, I was just so frustrated at the medical community, like this, it's all in your head image. I mean, we hear that so much. It's all in your head. It's all in your. No, you just don't know it yet. It's not rare. It's rarely understood by doctors, but for whatever reason, they don't want to admit that they don't know. So you get this, it's all in your head thing. Either that or you get told lose weight. I saw one doctor. I was so desperately thin. I went to see this bone specialist. He came in the room with my chart, hadn't even looked up, and he said, "Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong here. You should probably just lose some weight." Hadn't even looked at me. I had to do the, kind of thing to get his attention, and he looked up. Oh, well, maybe that's not it. No, it's all in my head. So anyway, I've had some fun. I literally stuck my face up into a super wide angle lens for that, all in your head thing. My tiny little feet down here and my big fat head. So yeah, so that's just my humor coming into play. But yeah, other things like the bag that I need to carry around, 10 pounds. 10 pounds, that's a lot for a healthy person, you know? but those are all things that I need to have with me at all times. So, yeah. And then the next one, the missed opportunities. I mean, that's one of the biggest ones for me, not being able to get out in the world anymore. And um, that was actually an interesting shoot. I had to plot out the flight patterns at the airports nearby, and then I had to plot the weather when I thought I would be able to go shoot, and then I had to find a really tall palm tree, and then I had to wait for the planes to go over, and of course all the several days before, I just had to keep hoping, let me be well enough to do this that day. Let me, all that planning, let me be well enough to, to get over there. But it really is life changing. It's sort of, there's your old life and now this is your new life, and how are you going to live it, and how are you going to do it without a support team medically, because that's really what it is for women.
I was
So
thinking as I've been looking through these, especially the ones where you're in them, how physical they are, how, I mean, I know, myself posing for images, whether it is my own self-portrait or for other artists, and I'm trying to find one where your body's in it. Like even this one here, you
oh,
know,
yes, this.
yeah, the physicalness, and then, everything that went behind it, the setup, everything you had to do while, not feeling well and while trying to figure out, like you said, am I going to feel well? Yeah, I mean, all of the time that takes. Do you kind of want to walk us through, like, you know, from start to finish, the setup of some of these scenes?
Yeah, this one in particular was extremely challenging because it took a lot to set up the gear first off. I had to set up a light stand with a boom arm that I could attach my camera to, and I knew that I would be sitting in a tub of water. So the last thing I wanted to have happen is for my camera. I mean, I've got some pretty decent gear. The thought of it falling in the water was just no, right? So I spent a lot of time designing out exactly how I was going to attach that camera. And then I'm so Ms. MacGyver here that I ended up with like yoga straps on top of the camera and bungee cords, and making sure that there was no way that that camera was coming down. At the same time, for whatever reason, I couldn't get the tethering to work. That meant that I had to get everything set up, get the water set up, get dressed, get in the water. I had a trigger that I'd click the picture and quickly toss the trigger, because I couldn't just duck the trigger in my clothing or anything like I would normally do. It's water, right? So I'd quickly toss the trigger, and I would do that a few times in hopes that I was getting something, but then I would have to get out of the tub, dripping wet, go climb up the ladder to look at the back of the camera. And you're right, about halfway through, I was done. I knew I was losing it. I was losing my ability to function, and I had to make a decision. Do I have enough? No, it wasn't quite exactly what I wanted. And so, yeah, that was a very, very challenging shoot. And I ended up bedbound for almost a week after that because of the energy that I had to put into it. And I'm happy with how it came out. It's what I was intending anyway. But yeah, I definitely paid the price for that. The ones where I'm low, like the one where I'm lying on the ground and having to get up and go, check the camera, or, watch the my laptop screen, that was challenging. And the floating body up at the top, I used a bar stool, as simple of a bar stool as I could find. And what I ended up having to do was I had to sort of balance myself on that bar stool, which I don't know about all of you, but I don't have a lot of core strength. So that was like doing reverse sit-ups or something. And so I'll be honest, a few of those, and I was perfectly fine with what was in the can at that point. Yep, that'll do. I was done. Just getting up off the ground multiple times. I don't have that. With myalgic encephalomyelitis, every muscle activity zaps you 100 times over. It causes this thing called post-exertional malaise, and it's a very real thing. It literally will confine you to your bed for days, if not weeks or months, after some kind of physical activity. So it was definitely a risk doing any of these types of physical activities. And I made sure for days ahead of time to not do anything. I spent days in bed before being able to do a number of these shoots, and I made sure I was super hydrated. And even then, sometimes it can just lay you up for who knows how long. So yeah, it was a balance,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, absolutely. Another question I had is, I love in, kind of these object-based works, how you're presenting the work, whether it is in this way, these Polaroids hanging with the hanger, or like this piece here, which part is the art? Is it this photo? Is it the flower? Is it the whole thing? And I know we had talked about that because there's also the piece with the vase, this piece where I don't remember if like this was the actual piece, and I know you had to
Mhm.
play with it because you wanted the text to be seen. So do you want to talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, so that originally, yeah, the image, me in the back brace there, that was the art. That was the image. When thinking about the show and how to present it, I wanted there to be more dimension to it than, again, just showing some images. I wanted it to, I, I wanted it to feel like you were sitting in that room, like you were at your mom's table, and, that was just the vase on the table, and you just happened to, plop that image up there, you were talking about it, or memories, or what have you. And um I wanted I just I wanted to I feel like it gives it a little bit more life and movement. The one with the Polaroids, which those actually aren't even Polaroids, I created those myself in Photoshop. But so I have so many medical records over all these years. I've digitized them all now, but I could fill an entire garage full of just stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of my own personal medical records, and all of the CDs, um, that they burn for you after every MRI or every X-ray or whatever. And so I started pulling all of that stuff together, and I made a big closet of all of my records, and I started taking pictures, and it just felt so boring to me. Like, oh, a picture of a medical room or a records room, like here's a bunch of files and papers and folders. And so I thought, okay, but I feel like it's important because every time you go to a doctor, they're specialized in one body part. So you then have to go to another, even if your condition is full system, your whole system, you have to go to multiple doctors. Well, then if you've got a doctor that doesn't know, then you've got to go to a different doctor. And so you're doing all these same tests over and over and over again. And so I felt it's really important to show that and show that volume. But I just needed to come up with a way that just wasn't so flat. And so, yeah, I just decided to create these Polaroids and link them together. Like I personally have to link one specialist to another specialist because they don't speak to each other, right? I am the link between all of them. And so that's just sort of how I came up with the concept to show what could really be a very boring sort of subject matter.
The one word that comes up throughout this whole thing is just poetic. I mean, how poetic, and I mean, poetry, of course, can be sad and angry and happy. I mean, so many different things. And that is exactly like every single thing, whether it is, sadness or, anger at the medical, establishment. And I worked in that for a long time, so
So
I get it. Yeah, exactly. But then also there's just, somehow there's hope. There's in everything that you're doing here that you've done that, I say that as we're looking at knives, but, I don't know.
There's
There's
hope there.
also,
That's a dishwasher.
yeah,
That is
yeah,
hopeful.
exactly. There's so many different layers, that make the exhibition just beautiful in so many ways. So many ways.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you.
You're
I
welcome.
really appreciate that.
Does anybody have any questions or, want to jump in with anything? Feel free to unmute or raise your, virtual hand or post in chat.
Oh, I'm raising my hand.
Yeah, Monica.
I don't know if you can see me with when it's a screen share.
Yep.
I just relate to so much of what you're saying, and I am so deeply touched at the way you used images to explain your experience, which it is like poetry. I agree with that, and I just it's very touching to me because I relate to a lot of this, both myself and my daughter, and I don't really know what else to say. I'm in emotion, so the words aren't coming out as well. Just thank you for doing this.
Thank you. That's so kind of you to say. I mean, honestly, the whole point is I'm hoping that I'm doing right by all of my sisters with chronic illness, right? I mean, and I went out to a lot of these groups before too, and I said, listen, here's, I've got this list of all these things that I'm dealing with. What am I missing? I want to make this project as thorough as and I am continuing. I'm definitely not done, and so I am constantly sort of checking in. What else? What else? What am I missing? I know there, and people will say things like, well, don't forget the fact that they're constantly shutting off your medication, and then you have to fight to get your medications back, and you go those 2 weeks without medication and you practically die and you end up in the emergency room, and all of these just horrific things. And I think, oh my gosh, that's right. How could I not remember that? And so it goes on the list. And so really, I mean, the point here is not, oh yay, I'm doing photography. It's I don't know if I can help one person understand their loved one with chronic illness better, or if I can get one doctor to step back and say, oh, wow, yeah, maybe it is better to say, I just don't know, as opposed to, dismissing somebody or putting up this arrogant front, or I don't know if I can make a difference in some way, if I can, reach people. That's, to me, that is the whole point. Like I said earlier, I'm a subtle activist. I'm not super out there in front and, protesting, and although I might if I had the health, I don't know, but this is my contribution, I suppose. And so thank you for your kind words. I'm glad that it's resonating.
I think for so many, you know, I mean, I'm sure you could get more than one person, to think everything you said, but I think you can get, definitely everybody that sees this is going to come away with the idea that they're not alone, and that you're not alone, and that, they're, yeah, and that's so important to, for whatever we're dealing with, my eating disorder, whenever I hear people talking about stuff that they're going through and it's the same things that I'm going through, I feel like I'm not alone and that I'm not crazy. And so by you telling your story in this way, and people who get, who are going through the same things see it, it's like it's kind of this breath of fresh air, or like this relief, this kind of relief, and or release also. And
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
and that is so inspiring and so empowering. And thank you for that.
And that goes both ways. I mean, I had this one guy reach out to me, that again, where the body's floating over, me on the ground. He reached out to me and he said, I have been trying to explain this to my partner. I haven't been able to explain this phenomenon. And he said, you gave me the words. So not only was he able to, show the picture here, this is what I'm talking about, but he said that image gave him the words. And of course, I start bawling.
Yep.
It's just,
Yep.
maybe, oh, okay, somebody gets it.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we're all inspiring each other. I mean, we're all, helping each other. And yeah, it definitely motivates me to keep going. There is so much more to this. There's so much more to say. There's so much more to write, and I want to do right by, others, my sisters who are suffering. So yeah, you're right. It goes both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I look at this image. I'm having an MRI on Sunday, my follow-up after cancer. So I'm like,
Uh,
okay, there I go.
so are you a claustrophobia person? Are you?
I was actually, I think I was in the bigger, it was a little bigger than that. It's like the next bigger up, and I did okay. So,
Yeah.
and I told them, I think if I was in that, I don't know, I'd be claustrophobic. So, but
I always ask them, okay, which machine? And I thought that it was different machines based on maybe, different sizes, like really big dudes would get and they said, that's not it at all. It depends on which body part is being imaged, needs a different
oh,
type of machine, which I thought was so depressing, because
yeah.
I thought maybe I could just always request, I mean, now, honestly, I've had so many, I don't even care. Stick me in a coffin. It does
Yeah.
which is surprising, because initially I had to take something, and so, yeah.
I just
Well,
had one where they asked me, "Are you claustrophobic?" And I said, "Well, do you have an open MRI machine?" And they said no. And I was like thinking, "Why are you asking then? If
I
nothing else
know.
for me.
I think they do that so they can prepare the text. I don't think it has anything to do with you. It's just about, oh, let me let the tech know what they're in for that day, you know?
Well, they told me on Sunday morning that, when they scheduled me 6:45 a.m. on a Sunday morning, that
Yeah.
I should get the big machine. But as we know, in medical, you don't always get what you ask for. I remember when I had my gallbladder out, I told them the anesthesia, I wanted the IV and not the gas, because I remember getting the gas when I was a kid and I was traumatized by it. What do? I get in there on the surgery table and they give me the gas. I'm just like, so yeah, I mean, everything that you're talking about in many different ways, I think we all have stories for, and can relate.
Exactly. Well, I hope yours goes well this
Thank
weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
They give you the panic button. Being in the MRI, I like when they give you a panic button.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know what's really genius too? They make these glasses now that you put on, but they've got this little mirror above them. So if you open your eyes, you're not actually seeing the MRI machine, you're seeing the text in the
Oh,
room. So it doesn't feel so closed in. So ask for the mirror glasses. They'll know what you're talking. It makes a huge difference, in my opinion.
wow.
Plugs, earplugs,
Yeah.
the earplugs.
Yes.
I actually, when I was laying in there and I was listening to the pow, 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 I imagined it was like a rock band or something.
Oh, I've done that.
I was trying not to laugh.
The same. I've done that, and you kind of start to get into the rhythm.
I know.
And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, I need you to hold your
I know.
breath for this. And you're like, leave me alone.
I
I
know.
was zoning. I was actually doing okay until you brought me back into this box, you know?
Excuse me, I'm having an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last one I did, they had earplugs and noise canceling headphones. And I
Yeah.
had, because of my sensory issues, that was very helpful.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, to have both. So
it really depends. I mean, I had Kaiser and, I didn't have any of that. And like, I did okay, thankfully, but it depends on your doctor. I mean, everybody is so different. Every insurance is different. Every country, as we know, is different. I mean, it just, there's so much that it depends on. I mean, I even having Kaiser, I consider myself lucky, but I didn't get noise canceling headphones or glasses or anything.
A lot of times you have to ask, but also a lot of times you have to really ask. Like, I know the places that I go to, I know they're there. I know they're available. And I've had people say, oh yeah, no, we don't have those. And I'll have to say, are you sure? And I'll have to, but you have to be nice about it. That's the other issue, right? You have to be somewhat assertive and advocate for yourself, but not too much, because then they'll really turn. I mean, it's not just for the MRI situation, but the whole medical thing altogether, right? So yeah, you just have to keep asking and keep pushing, and realize that at the end of the day, at least for me, I realize at the end of the day that I own my own health. I think of doctors now as though they're consultants, and if I was going to remodel my home or add on somewhere, I would interview a bunch of architects, right? And I'd find the right one that's the right fit consultant for me. And that's pretty much how I pursue medical professionals at this point too. And if I know something isn't, if I'm dismissed from the get-go and they start, throwing all of that misogyny at me, I just thank them for their time, get up, and no sense in wasting any more of their time or my time, or, it's a very, very difficult balancing act for women in these situations. And, if we don't do something, like I said, these conditions are killing women. Women are dying from these conditions. and they're taking their lives because of these conditions and because of the way the medical profession treats women. So we all have to just keep pushing, I think.
Well, like, thank you for being an activist and an advocate. I mean, for yourself, and even your art is advocacy for others too. Talking about it as you are, as we are, we need to learn, and we need to be brave. Monica actually went in with me for my first appointment when I found out I had cancer. I needed somebody with me who knew the right questions to ask, who knew, who took notes, who, kind of held my hand the whole time. And, it's, whether we can do it for ourselves or for other people, I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like that should be a whole profession itself, because there's people that can do that, but it's also needed. I mean, as you've been talking about this whole time, it's we need to speak up for ourselves. And that's exactly what your exhibition is about, is speaking up for yourself to your doctors, to, the medical professions, and for yourself, saying, this is what I need. And especially, I'm in a couple of Facebook groups also, for a couple of different things like my eating disorder and stuff like that. And having peers, that can, advocate for you and with you, and, and help you, also is a way of activism, for us. So kudos and
Exactly.
thank you for all of that, that, I mean, hopefully, I don't know, just the awareness, that the more you put it out there, the more we all do in our own way, the more awareness there will be and recognition.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're all in this together for
Yep.
sure. I mean, I didn't start anything here. I'm standing on the shoulders of others, right? And we all do our part as best as we can, and keep pushing for change. I mean, we have to. We
Yep.
have to. So yeah, I'm so grateful for this opportunity, Kristine. I really want to thank you for this opportunity, for your help through all of it, your mentorship, and yeah, I'm super grateful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And really fast, one last thing. I feel like we need to take "it's all in your head" and turn it on its head and say, yes, it is. And that is good. Then why not? It's like, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe like shifting perspective in that and say, it's in my head. And that's because I'm a smart, intelligent woman,
I like that. Yeah, it's sort of like gosh, how many people have told me, oh, you're just faking it. Yes, I am.
Yep.
Yes, I am faking it
Exactly.
every day.
Yep.
I am faking wellness every day. And you want to know why? So that I don't get spit on when I park in a disabled handicap or disabled parking space.
Yeah.
Like I have,
Yep.
So yeah, no, I love that. Somebody else suggested I should put those on coffee mugs.
Yes. Yep. Well, they even say fake it till you make it. It's like, there's so many different, yeah, don't fake it here, but fake it here. It's like,
Well, I can't figure out why anybody thinks any of us would ever want to be faking being ill. I mean, what is it that they think we're getting out of this?
I know.
Oh, I get a parking space at the front door. Guess what? I'll trade with anybody. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Whatever the perceived benefit is from that, I'd sure like to know, because I'm not taking advantage of it currently. So.
Exactly.
Well, there's a lack of trust in our society, I think.
Yes.
Comes a lot from that. The whole thing about it's in your head, it comes from trust, I think, because yeah, it's in my head, that doesn't mean it's not valid. It it is in my head because that's my experience. You just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. Well, and I think especially invisible illnesses, people look at me and they tell me, well, you don't look sick. And they don't mean that in a positive way, you know? It's like, well, you don't look sick. And I have to say, well, that's because the sickness is inside, you know?
How's it going?
Yep, yep.
I mean, you know, somebody that has a heart attack, 5 minutes before the heart attack, they don't look sick. But, you know, so there's that whole kind of thing. Like, yeah, no, it's there.
Exactly, exactly.
So,
Are there any other questions for Patricia about the exhibition? Anything else anybody would like to say?
I'm so grateful that you all came out. I was telling Kristine beforehand, I was like, I sure hope somebody shows up. Otherwise, we're just going to sit here and have cocktails and chat for a couple of minutes.
Hey, which is totally fine.
Yeah, exactly. No, but thank you all. That it means the world to me that you came out to listen to me. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you everybody for being here. The exhibition is online for, it's under current exhibitions for another month or so, and then it'll be under past exhibitions. So you can go back and see it. There will be a video of, I'm gonna put the recording on YouTube, and it'll be at the top of the exhibition. So you'll be able to go back and watch the video and share it with anybody because, you know, I think it's an important conversation. So, but thank you all so much for being here. And again, if you have any questions or missed the information at the very beginning, Monica and I was going to say Kristine, I'm looking at myself. Monica and Patricia are having, I know, a conversation on the 28th with Opulent Mobility, a Laura Brody, you know, which is also going to be great. So we, you know, definitely join for that one too. Marta, did you have a question?
Not a question. Patricia, I put a comment in the chat and just want to thank you again. So read the chat. People put comments and
I will do that. Thank you.
Want to thank you. Thank you for your story. Thank you for putting it out there. It's appreciated. Myself, I'm sure there are others who can relate and understand. And it's what you were saying about women having to advocate for themselves. That is a really big deal. When you come in as an informed patient, I often say I have to be my own doctor because they'll just gloss over things. One of my favorite things was one of them said, "Oh, you went to Google University." So.
Oh, I love that. I love that because I say, because you didn't. I mean, I have access to all sorts of, I can access PubMed. I can access, you know, what they've got. I've got the time to do it. So yeah, that whole, oh, you've been spending too much time with Dr. Google. That doesn't faze me at all anymore.
We could do a whole thing just about medical gaslighting.
Oh, we certainly could. We certainly could. Yeah. Yeah. But I typically now I will comment on it. It used to be in the beginning that I thought, oh, maybe I don't have this, or oh, maybe I don't know what but now, no, I fully understand that they just, these things that they say are so rare. They're not rare. They're just rarely understood by doctors, and I know that now. So I'm a lot more comfortable in these appointments. And, if they really, really start digging at me and you can tell that they're just really trying to make a point at putting me in my place or dismissing me, then I just look at them and I say, clearly, I've talked to you out on your experience here. And so I won't take up any more of your time, but I do appreciate the time you've taken with me, certainly. And I'll take off now and shake their hand, have a good day, and off I go. Like, I don't absorb it in anymore, and I think that's what we have to do. I think we have to to unnormalize their behavior. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. Whole project, whole book right there. Go ahead and take that on, Monica.
Exactly.
I'm already writing a book.
Okay, well, there you go.
I'm writing a book
Add that to the list.
about being the mom of somebody with a chronic illness that was not diagnosed for many years. So,
Oh, sorry to hear that.
yeah, so I don't want to usurp your time, but so yeah, I'm already writing a book, so it's your turn.
Okay. Oh, nice
Actually, I
punt.
want to see this exhibition as a book. You know, just keep going and create a
Oh,
book.
that's what I'm hoping. I'm trying to manifest that.
Yeah.
Yes, let's manifest a book.
It's out there. Yep.
Yes, yes. Oh.
Yep. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for being here. And and good to see everybody. And great to see, like Emily, great to see you in person the other day. And of course, Monica too. And
Yeah, it was really beautiful. I just wanted to speak up, I guess, and just say that your exhibit is really touching, and I really wanted to make a point to see it when I saw the promotions about it, but I'm really glad that I did, and it was really good to hear about all the work, and I will go back and look at it and read the text and everything, but I definitely like it's a lot, and I have so much anxiety when it comes to like the medical world, and kind of you almost like validate that, where I haven't been through what you've been through, but like having my own challenges and being able to like see the frustration and like how things can just like stop you in your life in its place in a way, when it's like, oh, you get so worried about these like little things, but then when like a medical issue comes, it kind of just takes priority and you don't have a choice.
Right.
But then you're stuck with the people that are just like not connected to you really, and they're just like going through the motions of that's their job, and like maybe they're not really hearing you. So I definitely like really related to all the images, and I do want to go back and kind of read and take it all in too. So I do appreciate your thought process and your exhibition. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for your kind words. I appreciate it. It's very motivating.
Yeah, I definitely think a book. Yes, a book sounds great.
Manifesting.
yeah. All righty. Well, everybody enjoy the rest of your night, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you again, everybody. Kristine, thank you so
You're
much.
very welcome. You're welcome.
Good luck
Have a good night,
Bye,
everybody.
with tests. Good luck with tests.
Thank you. Thank you.